Srikanth, AK, old friend of mine from GE, currently the Managing Director of CSE Corporation, also the Global Head of Workforce Management. He's been extremely involved in the area of HR analytics. He breathes and lives numbers, and he actually remembers numbers and names, typical HR person. He's going to be our moderator for this evening, an eloquent speaker. We have shared that several times before we work together, and it's my pleasure to welcome Srikanth this evening. I then have my colleague from Amazon, Rajiv Rastogi. Rajiv is one of the few very, very well-known machine learning scientists the country of India has today. If you were to Google machine learning scientists, top few of them, Rajiv probably will be in the top 5. And we are really pleased to have you here, Rajiv, this evening. Rajiv has extensive experience running Bell Labs. He was the founder director of Bell Labs here in Bangalore. And then he was the Vice President of Machine Learning and Decision Sciences in Yahoo, and I've been fortunate to be his colleague for the last 4 years, where he runs machine learning for Amazon global company based here. Rajiv has a PhD in computer science and decision sciences from University of Texas Austin, and welcome, Rajiv. We have Deepak Malkhani, another old colleague of mine, and as well as Balas. Deepak is the head of compensation for GE Capital Asia. Prior to that, he used to run the HR shared service centers for GE. He's been there in GE for 10 years, again 15 years. Again, someone who's worked enormously in the area of Six Sigma in terms of getting numbers, talking, etc. He's got significant experience before GE as well in companies like Bharti Telesoft and Netherlands, etc. He's obviously a Six Sigma certified black belt from GE, and he's specially come in from Delhi this afternoon just for the session and going to go back later this evening. I know it must have taken you less time flying from Delhi to Bangalore than from Bangalore airport to here, but thank you so much for coming, Deepak. So the third panelist today is from Hay Group, Shiva Bala. He is the principal consultant for the Conferee Hay Group for the Southern India region. He is based in Chennai. Again, thank you so much, Shiva, for making it here from Chennai. And he also has an evening flight to go back to. And without much ado, introducing Shiva, he's got a chemical engineering degree as well as a management degree, and several years with consulting, and lately have been acquired by Conferee, so now they call Conferee Hay Group. Welcome. And close on yours.
Thanks, Raj. Good evening. I think that energy is not enough. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, thank you, Raj. Thanks for inviting me. And we have very exciting panel members. So my job is to set the stage on the topic. Each one of us will speak 5 to 6 minutes. Then based on the topic what they spoke, I will ask certain pointed questions. Then I'm very sure that some of these people told me outside, please give us sufficient time to ask questions. So I definitely give you sufficient time to ask questions. So I'll speak 5-6 minutes setting the stage. So I was reading many books on HR analytics over the last 15-20 years. One of the books I read recently by Nhrd called Talent Masters. So he has beautifully quoted on HR analytics. He said, if CFOs handle data the way HR people handle data, all companies would have gone bankrupt. That is the statement he made. So it's a very powerful statement. One of the challenge HR community face today is there is no common operational definition on HR matrices and measurements. The same company defines HR measurements and analytics differently at a different point of time. I have seen the attrition being measured differently, and if you want to show better retention, we define attrition differently, like good attrition, bad attrition. We take the campus graduate attrition out of the equation to show it is better and better. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And we don't have any discipline of measuring data also. And data quality is very bad. And we have data all over the place. So that's one of the biggest challenge. We have to really take care of our data. We should have better operational definition. I was talking to Deepak. One of the things I learned in my early part of the journey of HR analytics is Saratoga. Saratoga tried a lot of defining HR measurements, having a common operational definition. They had a concept called metric of the month. They took each metric and defined operationally and trying to create a discipline of accounting standards in HR measurements and metrics. I think we should learn from Saratoga. I think they have come a long way of defining common operational definition. My journey in HR analytics again go back when I was a student of psychology. How many psychology students we have here? Okay. So that's a very interesting field to learn data and data management. I remember in my first class the professor came and the first debate we had whether psychology is an arts or science. Actually we call it a BA psychology. It's not BSc psychology, it's a BA psychology. So it's a discipline of arts, it's not a discipline of science. So the professor was trying to tell us psychology is a science, not an art. To qualify psychology, although it comes under BA, he was telling it's a science and engineering. And he says in order to qualify psychology to be a science, three fundamental characteristics you need to qualify. The first one, you should be able to understand any phenomena. That is called understanding. You can understand behavior. Instead, I'm going to teach you for 3 years, you can understand human behavior. Second one is, to qualify science, you should be able to predict any phenomena, then it is science. Otherwise, it is not a science. Third one is, after understanding and after predicting, he cannot be the mercy of chance, you should be able to control it. Then it's called science. So psychology is a science because we can understand a behavior, we can predict a behavior, and we can control a behavior. Similarly, when I got into MSW, the professor came and asked whether human relationship or human personal management is science or arts, because MSW also comes under social science, not under management. And again, same debate we had in the first week. Yes, human behavior or a personal management can be understood, it can be predicted, and it can be controlled. So in order to understand, predict and control, you need to understand in level of data. Every behavior has to be defined in terms of data, whether it's recruitment, whether it's performance management, whether it's retention, whether it's compensation, need to be understood in form of data. We cannot talk in terms of anecdotes. It has to be understood in data. Second challenge is we need to be able to predict it. After understanding a particular phenomena, whether it's recruitment or performance management or compensation, you need to predict it. What will be the trend in the next quarter or next year or coming years, where this is going to head. Then the third one is you need to control the way the business leaders want. That has been the journey last 23 years of my human resource management practices. So when we do understand, predict and control, the HR world have two challenges, which I experienced in companies I work. The challenges are, some of the data are very tangible. What is tangible means? You can measure it, very easily measure it. It is in form of hard data. In Six Sigma we call continuous data, or you can measure it, like some of the data in compensation, some of the data in recruitment, you can measure it. It is available in Excel sheet. Another challenge is some of the data is not tangible, it is intangible. Can you give me an example of intangible data? Motivation, it's an intangible data. Culture is an intangible data. Then discretionary efforts of employees is an intangible data. Quality of candidate is an intangible data. Perception is an intangible data. So how do you measure? This has been a biggest challenge. Even the quantitative data itself, we have a bigger challenge of measuring it. As I mentioned, there is no common operational definition. Data is not available and people don't pay attention to this. So the challenge has been how do you really measure quantitative data as well as qualitative data, and how do you understand it, how do you predict it, and how do you control it. I'll give two case studies. One, my journey in Britannia. The total quantitative data, we call it as hard data, was only 3% of the revenue. The HR budget was only 3% of the revenue. That also board, Nasliwadi and Vinita Bali to reduce to 2.8%. And they benchmarked the Parlay and many companies, and they found their total labor cost, or the direct cost of labor and indirect cost of labor, was 2.8% for Parlay, and they said reduce 3.1 to 2.8. And that was very hard, isn't it? How do I reduce it? and employees were paid at the 50th percentile or less than 50th percentile. My recruitment cost was very negligible, most of the things I do internally. So that was the journey, but we did it. We brought it to 2.7% through HR analytics and a lot of measurement. But we had a huge opportunity to touch intangible data, which is culture, brand, employee motivation, discretionary efforts. We did a lot of analytics around that. I can proudly say we did even a lot of productivity measures using mobile devices were given to Salesforce. We understood their route optimization, how do they capture the data in the marketplace stocks and everything. We did a lot of work which is not HR actually in traditional way, but it's all soft data we did it. And I can proudly say when I joined, the stock price was 430 rupees. When I left, it was 2,800 rupees. So we did a lot of work around HR analytics and improved it. That's one case study. A company which is FMCG manufacturing, the opportunity of HR impact is 2.8 to 3%. Some of you sitting here can agree with me. That's an opportunity, and intangible opportunities are huge, which have never HR seen that opportunity. Then in my current role, the case was different. In IT service companies and banking and other areas, the labor cost is 65%. Just opposite of there in Britannia, the material cost was 55 to 65%, wheat, sugar and everything. And so here in IT service company, the material is people, and that cost is 65%, and you could really impact the business using billability, utilization, pyramid correction, and a lot of things, and intangible also, like culture, attitude and everything. So that's what we have done it, and we come up with an HR model. Like Raj mentioned, I have two roles as Managing Director of India. I have to improve delivery and quality, but other part is global workforce management. I do HR analytics, and this which require commitment from the corporate. The CEO reviews every Thursday, Indian time 5:30 to 6:30 HR analytics with me and along with his leadership team, and we look at tangible and intangible matrices, including culture, including discretionary efforts employee, and we use a concept called ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score, billability, utilization, pyramid management, everything, and we have changed the way HR is looking at the organization, and we could achieve a lot. And we used a model called a Simply Ask HR analytical model, and we look at what, so what, and how what. 18 dimensions of HR we look at, and how do we measure that, so what, how it's impacting revenue of the organization, how it's impacting the operating income of the organization, how it's impacting TSR, total shareholders value, or shareholders return. That's called so what. Now what? What will you do differently? How do you understand, predict and control? That's what we have done it. I don't take much time of other panel members, definitely happy to discuss some other time. We have a lot of interesting thoughts. HR analytics have grown in the field, not only moving from process, the process captures data have common operational definition, the common operational definition getting into analytics moving into business intelligence moving into process improvements. And we started using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and a lot of things. We are eager to learn from our experts sitting in the panel. So let's start with Rajiv. So we would like to learn from you how you use machine learning and other aspects into the employee life cycle. So over to you, Rajiv.
Hi. Thanks so much. That was a great talk to set up the, some of the views I wanted to express. So what I'm going to talk about is really about analytics applied to different stages of the employee life cycle. And some of these things we are working on at Amazon, some of the stuff we are experimenting with, and many of the things I'm going to talk about are maybe somewhat futuristic. As was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of advances happening in AI. There's a lot of technology being developed. It's a fast-moving field, and it's going to enable a lot of things that will also touch HR. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So at a very high level, do people here know what machine learning really is, or what predictive analytics is? How many people know what predictive analytics or machine learning is? Okay. Let me just talk a little bit about machine learning and predictive analytics. Now, traditionally, what a lot of analytics has been based on report generation. So reports are typically, provide you different views of the data, aggregated views of the data. You have, a lot of systems out there, online analytic processing and so on, that can aggregate the data, slice and dice the data differently. You can get to know what is the attrition rates you have in different job families, at different levels, across gender, age, and so on. So you're going to get a lot of insights that way just from reports. But predictive analytics actually goes one step further. It's not just about aggregating data or slicing and dicing data, but it's actually predicting, making predictions. So, recognizing patterns in your data, doing some very sophisticated analysis of the data that allows you to predict and make predictions on future data. So one example could be, you are, looking to recruit candidates, and your predictive analytics system can find a pattern that says, well, if somebody is looking to hire software engineers, so if somebody is, a graduate of an NIT or an IIT and has a GPA which is more than 3.5, then they're very likely to get an offer from Amazon or any company, right? So that could be a pattern that gets detected, and that is actually detected from historical data. So it's not something that somebody has hand coded or any human knowledge has gone into it. It's completely learned automatically from past data that you've generated. The kinds of offers you've generated, the people got rejected, people got accepted. You have their resumes, and a machine learning algorithm actually discovers these patterns, right? And then these patterns can be used to make predictions about the future. So if there's somebody who satisfies the left-hand side, then they're very likely to get an offer, and you could rank them higher, right? So that's one example. Another example could be if somebody who's an employee within your company, and you're interested in knowing attrition risks or retention, the retention potential and so on. You could learn rules. Again, this could be something data-driven based on people who left the company. You could learn patterns that, somebody who's been at the same job level, a certain level for more than 5 years and hasn't got a great performance rating is very likely to leave the company, right? So again, patterns like this would be learned completely from the data. And two areas where my team at Amazon has been actively developing predictive analytics solutions. And actually, we experimented with Raj's team, applied it to recruiting. So, two problems there. One relates to sourcing. So you have, the problem there is you have a position, there is a job description for the position, whatever the qualifications and so on, and then you have candidate profiles and resumes, and you're trying to match the candidate profiles with the positions, right? And the idea there would be, again, to identify the candidates who are most qualified for that position, right? Who are the best fit for that position. And the data here, again, for candidates that you have are, their background in terms of education, the degrees they have, the schools they've gone to, the work experience, the number of years of work experience, and also all the kinds of projects they've done. And these predictive analytics solutions will look at different kinds of features. I mean, they could look at certain keywords appearing in your resume. Machine learning or data science could be a keyword. Schools could be keywords. They could also look at what's the overlap between job descriptions and the candidate resume, right? So similarly, during interviews, also you could be, you can't possibly look at all the resumes that come in. So at some level, you want to kind of rank these resumes. So for a given position, you want to say who are the candidates who are most likely to get an offer from your company, right? So again, predictive analytics can help you completely rank all stack rank, and that's what we did. We built models using predictive analytics to stack rank all the resumes for certain positions in terms of their likelihood to get a job offer. And we were able to reduce the number of resumes we had to actually, somebody had to screen or look through, because we just used that to filter out resumes that were very unlikely to get an offer. And we were able to eliminate almost 60% of resumes. No recruiter looked at those resumes. They just filtered out, we only looked at 40%, right? So there are strong correlations in the data, typically, and that's where predictive analytics does work. And now, with respect to employees, there are many areas that this would be somewhat futuristic. We aren't doing it right now. There could be, privacy-related issues and other things that would need to be addressed. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the possibilities here, right? So you could very well use, predictive analytics to predict who would be your potential high performers, right? Who are the people who are going to be very successful at your company? Who are people who are ready for promotions to the next level? Who are also at some point even your comp and raises could be sort of predicted at some point, automatically generated based on different types of data that you may have, your feedback. I mean, for employees, you have a lot more data than candidates that you're interviewing. For employees, you have a lot of peer feedback, you have their own assessment of themselves, the manager's assessment. And of course, there's a lot of data, and I don't want to, the point about data quality is extremely important, because predictive analytics really relies on high quality data. So you have to have spent the effort to collect the data, make sure you have the right data, everything is collected in a proper way. And of course, there's a lot of social data. LinkedIn is a great source of data. There's skill endorsements for people. There are recommendations. So there's a lot of social data also that could be collected and thrown into the mix here. And just a couple of more points. I know I'm probably running out of time. Just talk a little bit about AI. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of advances are being made in AI. I mean, companies out there are able to actually develop algorithms that can play games better than humans, the best human experts. And recently, a machine actually beat the European champion in the game of Go. Is an old, I think, much older than chess, a very old Chinese game that's extremely complex. And an algorithm was able to beat a human at the game of Go. So there's a lot of strides being made in AI, and I just think in the future it's possible that your areas of improvement, your dev plans for employees, all the performance feedback could very well be automatically generated from peer feedback. So you have peers, whatever feedback you get from different people, a machine just analyzes that and creates a development plan for you. Of course, I don't think that's going to make HR people redundant. I think HR, a lot of these things will need some human inputs, some experts, but a lot will get automated in the coming years with all the advances in AI.
Okay, thanks Rajiv. It's very interesting, the artificial intelligence and predictive analytics from the machine learning perspective. So connecting the dot, when I kicked off, I mentioned one of the challenge in HR analytics is understanding prediction and control. You spoke about predicting, but how important is the business as well as HR understanding the domain? The domain also has moved a lot. Prediction without understanding the domain is not of much use. Second one is the control part of this. You predicted and you have very good trend chart and we can predict what it's going to look at. But at the end of the day, we need to take decisions based on prediction. But when the decision taking time comes, the business and HR don't take decisions based on the predictions. So we have to take the decisions and drive the decisions. So from your experience, how important is understanding the domain and taking the decision based on the prediction? That's a culture part of the organization. Can you just throw some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly understanding the domain is extremely important because all these predictive analytics solutions really rely on data, right? And the domain experts really know what data they have and what data they can collect and the processes they have, right? So, for example, if I were to work with Raj on building, a system that could predict the likelihood that a candidate coming in is is going to get an offer from Amazon. I really need to work closely with Raj to understand what's the data, you capture resumes, what else, what is the other data that you have within your HR systems, right? And we have to work to make sure that the data is clean and so on. So understanding the domain is extremely important. Predictive analytics is a horizontal technology. It's like, just think about it as databases, right? So it's a technology that allows you to store data in a certain, that's what databases are. But really, I mean, a database guy can't create a schema and decide what should be the fields in a table. You need a domain expert to say, well, here is how I want to create my tables. Here are the attributes I want in my tables. So similarly, predictive analytics is a horizontal technology, just like databases, and you need domain experts to come in when you're training your predictive analytics models. And of course, decisioning on the models is again very much done. So a predictive analytics model will give you a score. Actually, it will rate. At some level, it actually outputs a probability. At least in this case, it would output a probability that a candidate would get an offer. Okay. Now, they're not perfect. Okay. So the probability clearly, if it says 0.1, then maybe that's fine. It's almost certain you're not going to make an offer. And when the probability is 0.9, it's almost certain you're going to get an offer. But there's a middle space, maybe between 0.3 and 0.7, where you have things a little bit intermingled. If you look at history, there have been candidates who got a high like 0.65 whom we didn't make an offer, and there were candidates who were 0.35 whom we did make an offer to. So the question there is, we have to work closely with the business and say, where do we draw the line? Cut off all candidates below, because we are going to lose some. Potentially, it's possible that there is a chance we lose some good candidates also. Now, what's your tolerance level for losing good candidates, right? If I lost 1 out of 10 good candidates, is that okay? Now, depending on the domain, the threshold could be different. I mean, if I'm looking for a PhD machine learning scientist, I don't want to lose a single candidate. I want every candidate captured. But if I'm looking for maybe somebody who's less skilled, then I may be fine losing 1 out of 10. So I would set the threshold higher. I screen fewer resumes, but so all these decisions that get made on where the thresholds are set and so on, all have to be done in conjunction with business requirements.
So one point, clearly I want to drive here, that's the reason I asked that question, Rajiv. When Six Sigma was implemented many years back in G and many companies, it was only a decision enabling tool. At the end, it also enhances the domain knowledge. At the end, similarly, the HR analytics enhances the domain knowledge and it's a decision enabling tool, but it does not take decisions by themselves. So HR professionals need to really understand that point. Thanks, guys. It was very encouraging. Next, let's move into Deepak, if you can throw some light in terms, especially not only from compensation perspective. G is a great company. This is the first company to set up HR analytical center of excellence and expanded into HR domain. So we can share some of your learning and perspective on that.
An algorithm was able to beat a human at the game of Go. So there's a lot of strides being made in AI, and I just think in the future it's possible that your areas of improvement, your dev plans for employees, all the performance feedback could very well be automatically generated from peer feedback. So you have peers, whatever feedback you get from different people, a machine just analyzes that and creates a development plan for you. Of course, I don't think that is going to make HR people redundant. I think HR, a lot of these things will need some human inputs, some experts, but a lot will get automated in the coming years with all the advances in AI.
Okay, thanks Raju. It's very interesting, the artificial intelligence and predictive analytics from the machine learning perspective. So connecting the dot, when I kicked off, I mentioned one of the challenge in HR analytics is understanding prediction and control. You spoke about predicting, but how important is the business as well as HR understanding the domain? The domain also has moved a lot. Prediction without understanding the domain is not of much use. Second one is the control part of this. You predicted and you have very good trend chart and you can predict what it's going to look at. But at the end of the day, we take decisions based on prediction. But when the decision taking time comes, the business and HR don't take decisions based on the predictions. So we have to take the decisions and drive the decisions. So from your experience, how important is understanding the domain and taking the decision based on the prediction? That's a culture part of the organization. Can you just throw some light on that?
Clearly understanding the domain is extremely important because all these predictive analytics solutions really rely on data, right? And the domain experts really know what data they have and what data they can collect and the processes they have, right? So for example, if I were to work with Raj on building, a system that could predict the likelihood that a candidate coming in is going to get an offer from Amazon. I really need to work closely with Raj to understand what's the data, you capture resumes, what else, what is the other data that you have within your HR systems, right? And we have to work to make sure that the data is clean and so on. So understanding the domain is extremely important. Predictive analytics is a horizontal technology. It's like, just think about it as databases, right? So it's a technology that allows you to store data in a certain, that's what databases are. But really, a database guy can't create a schema and decide what should be the fields in a table. You need a domain expert to say, well, here is how I want to create my tables. Here are the attributes I want in my tables. So similarly, predictive analytics is a horizontal technology, just like databases, and you need domain experts to come in when you're training your predictive analytics model. And of course, decisioning on the models is again very much done. So a predictive analytics model will give you a score. Actually, it will rate at some level. It actually outputs a probability. At least in this case, it would output a probability that a candidate would get an offer. Okay. Now they're not perfect. Okay. So the probability clearly, if it's at 0.1, then maybe that's fine. It's almost certain you're not going to make an offer. And when the probability is 0.9, it's almost certain you're going to get an offer. But there's a middle space, maybe between 0.3 and 0.7, where you have things a little bit intermingled. If you look at history, there have been candidates who got a high like 0.65, whom we did make an offer, and there were candidates who were 0.35, whom we did make an offer to. So the question there is, we have to work closely with the business and say, where do we draw the line and cut off all candidates below? Because we are going to lose some, potentially possible that there is a chance we lose some good candidates also. Now, what's your tolerance level for losing good candidates, right? If I lost 1 out of 10 good candidates, is that okay? Now, depending on the domain, the thresholds could be different. If I'm looking for a PhD machine learning scientist, I don't want to lose a single candidate. I want every candidate captured. But if I'm looking for maybe somebody who's less skilled, then I may be fine losing 1 out of 10. So I would set the threshold higher. I screen fewer resumes, but so all these decisions that get made on where the thresholds are set and so on, all have to be done in conjunction with business requirements.
So one point clearly I want to drive here, that's the reason I asked that question to Rajiv. When Six Sigma was implemented many years back in G and many companies, it was only a decision enabling tool at the end, and it also enhances the domain knowledge. At the end, similarly, the HR analytics enhances the domain knowledge and it's a decision enabling tool, but it does not take decision by themselves. So HR professionals need to really understand that point. Thanks, Ravi. It was very encouraging. Next, let's move into Deepak. Deepak, if you can throw some light in terms, especially not only from compensation perspective. G is a great company. This is the first company to set up HR Nhrd Center of Excellence and expanded into HR domain. So we can share some of your learning and perspective on that.
This opportunity to be able to interact with all of you. Thanks a lot, and I really look forward to learn a lot from this event. Now, before I come to HR analytics, I want to just make a statement, something that one of my ex-manager had told me. He said that anything and everything that you do in the area of HR, not just HR, but in any function, if it is not linked to the business value or the bottom line of the business, it is not worth doing. You should just stop it then and there itself. Right, and that actually made me think a lot about what I was doing, because until then we were actually working on something called MIS, HR dashboards. We were publishing a lot of information, but then that made me realize that it was not very meaningful. He used to ask me questions in those reviews as to what is the story, what are you trying to convey, what are you trying to change in the organization, and I had no answers to those questions. And that is when I started thinking about how I can actually make this entire information more meaningful. Then, in my opinion, I converted it into a 6-stage process. First and foremost is the data. Now, again, no matter what you do, how you do, if the quality of your data is questionable, it is not going to give you the desired results at all. It is again not worth doing anything. So, first of all, you need to ensure that the quality is very high, right? Then, once you have achieved that stage, then you need to convert that raw data into information. And that step is what we know as MIS or HR dashboards, where we publish a lot of information. It could be related to hiring numbers, number of people who are exiting the business, the reasons why they are exiting, the talent churn, how many learning programs are we conducting, and so on and so forth. Now, once you convert this information into insightful information, that is called analysis. Now, we started doing analysis and started telling them that, look, when we drill down the data, these are the problem areas, this is what we need to fix out, and if we fix this together, this is what is going to get impacted, and we might achieve this kind of a result, which may be intended or desired. Now, once you do that insightful information, then you have to take decisions. As I say, fine, you have looked at it, the attrition is a problem area, let's say the attrition is 35%. When you drill down the information, you may realize that a significant number of people are actually leaving your organization in less than 0 to 6 months of experience bracket. Now, it's not a rocket science. All you need to do and fix that new hire process and try to understand what is it that these guys are lacking or what is it that these guys are not getting in the initial 6 months with the organization. Once you fix it, obviously your attrition will get fixed. Now, once you've taken the decision, that itself is not good enough. You have to make sure that somebody is taking action on that. And rather than leaving it on somebody else, you have to take control and take charge of everything in your own hand and ensure that that action is being taken on those decisions. And once these 5 stages have been completed, then that is when you get the business value. So when I understood this entire chain, it actually transformed the entire function, the way we were managing HR analytics. In other ways, if I have to explain the difference between MIS and probably HR analytics, just look at a small child of 6 months who is actually crying. Right now, that for me is HR MIS or dashboard. So you don't know why the child is crying. What is it, that he's suffering from? It could be teething issues. It could be a wet diaper. It could be anything out of what. You can think of 1,000 things. If you take that child to a doctor, right, and try to diagnose the reason why he's crying, that to me is HR analytics. And that is how we were, trying to put things to perspective and start making that information much more meaningful for the organization.
I think you raised a very interesting point, Deepak. One of the biggest challenge in HR analytics we face is what to measure in HR. And not only what to measure in HR, and how do you establish that measurement correlation to business. So first one, as I mentioned, what, next one is so what. For example, I have seen in many of my measurements when I say this is what I'm measuring, the business leader will ask, so what? Tell me how is going to impact my revenue, how is it going to impact my operating income, and many other measurements. Once you show the correlation, for example, cycle time of hiring is very high today. the next question you'll ask what it means to me in terms of revenue and operating income. You need to show the correlation between that. That's what, so what. The next question you'll ask, okay, now I understood it's impacting my revenue very badly. The next question you'll ask, now what? What are you going to do differently so that you can impact the cycle times and impact my revenue impact? So that relationship is very, very important. The next point you mentioned in terms of data quality is very, very important, like garbage in, garbage out. You provide wrong data and wrong decisions or wrong solutions are made, and that's why we lose the credibility in HR. And a lot of measurement system did not get impact in business because of data quality. Still we have struggled. We have implemented Workday, we have implemented many SAP system, but the data quality from the entry of data as well as timeliness of data, when the event happens, whether it's transfer or hire or termination or comp change, it has to happen on the same day. That's called timeliness of data. So timeliness of data and data quality are one of the biggest challenge our industry is facing. If you don't fix it, whatever the measurement you have, it will not have impact on business. Thanks for bringing that point. Now let's go into Deepak, share some of your thoughts. Especially, we are very curious to know your days of Saratoga, who are the masters in defining the operational definition and revolutionizing the HR analytics and business intelligence.
Thanks, good evening. My name is Sivaramakrishnan. The reason I'm here is also, just pick it up, there are 3 areas of work that I've done in my past and I continue to do. And all the 3 are 3 different life cycles of analytics. The first stage of analytics is being reactive. And it's not easy to be even reactive. And I have studied close to 55 Indian organizations on their ability to do reactive analytics, and there's a nightmare. Even large companies, very large organizations, I just go and ask them, how many people do you employ? Well, there are 10,000, 6,500, 8,000 metrics there. And it'll take a week to come back to say how many people do we employ. Right? There is a real problem in just being what is reactive. The next stage of work is around being proactive. You cross the base, you got all the information in some form, and you need to know what to do with the information. How can I enable decisions for today and decisions for the near future? And I will share with you examples around that. And the third stage of analytics is going to be predictive. We all talked about it. But the question is, where are we going with that? If my business is going to grow 5x from today to next 10 years, what does it mean for my workforce? What number of workforce do I need? What skills of workforce do I need? Which locations do I need? So on and so forth. This is predictive workforce planning. So there are different stages of it. And fortunately, I've been experienced as a consultant because unlike most of you, I've had an opportunity to deal with so many different companies. I'm sure that in this group you have people who are struggling with reactive, who are struggling with proactive, and who are struggling with predictive. And I'm sure this group has enough of that. And every time I always come back and say one thing, what are you trying to solve? And my experience in India and in Asia Pacific and some parts of Europe have been that typically there are 6 questions that we try to solve. And it's possible that one or all of them are relevant for you. The first question is around quality of hire. Are we hiring the right people? How can information tell me I'm hiring the right person? The second problem that we are solving is primarily around critical talent. Who are these critical talent in my company? How do I understand them? Where are they? How can I identify who will be critical talent going forward in the future? Whatever that means in your ecosystem. The third question is around all the investments that you have made in development of people. Is it providing you any return? Are people actually learning in that process? I've invested in it. People are going through a 18-month learning journey, 6-month learning journey, online learning journey. I'm sponsoring them to ISB, IAM, whatever. Is something coming out of it? The fourth question is around engagement. We have invested a lot of effort. We are doing engagement surveys, we are doing that survey, this survey, compensation increases. Struggling with all of that. Still, my attrition is of a certain range. Still, the people who I want to retain are going away. And you did talk about briefly about discretionary effort. Despite all my efforts of positive engagement initiatives, the discretionary effort in my company is very limited. It's in small pockets. Especially people going out of the way to do their job, right? That's also struggling. So what does data tell me about who are these managers, who are these leaders who are actually creating very positive energy in my company? how can I learn from how they are engaging with people, and can we learn from them? Problem 4. The problem 5 is around diversity. In India, we are predominantly talking still about gender diversity, but globally the talk is a lot more about other strands of diversity as well. So, question is, if in your company we are struggling with, say, increasing more women population at even managerial levels, let alone leadership levels. Yeah. So, the question is, how is the workflow of women happening in the company? So, you do flow analysis. Flow analysis of past, flow analysis of current recruitment patterns, all the positive initiatives that you are doing, what could hypothetically bring in terms of workflow, and you do analytics around that. This is the problem 5. The last problem, which we see maximum impact, is around the effectiveness of the HR function itself. It is partly reactive, partly productive, not necessarily predictive, but still is a very important diagnostic for you to conduct. And that means studying 200, 300, 400 metrics of how people and investments in people matter to us. And that is where my first experience comes in with Saratoga. I worked with Saratoga for about 3 years, both in India and 2 years in UK. And all the 333, 336 metrics that Saratoga has, all of them are very powerful on their own. But many companies end up choosing, I will study these 10 metrics for me. Finished. Story ends right there. We have missed the power of information and analytics. A company, it's like going to a doctor and saying, you know what, I think I have vitamin deficiency, can you give me a vitamin tablet? And you haven't even done a health checkup. So my advice to you who are starting on this analytics journey, so take stock of where are you today. Where are you today is actually a reactive process. You need to take stock of all aspects of HR, starting from every life cycle, very basics, sales per employee, return per employee, cost per employee, big high level definition. Next slide. What is the human capital return on investment? For every one person I invest in people, how much return do I get? The clear definitions for all these things. You can just check out Saratoga as the only yardstick in the world today to understand reactive and proactive data. For every investment in India, for example, we will talk about IT and FMCG. In India, the FMCG returns is 2.3 rupees. So if you invest an employee in an FMCG company, you will get 2.3 rupees return. In IT sector, the return is 1.2. So if you invest in people in IT sector, you are getting only 1.2 rupees return in India. So naturally, development or any other intervention in technology companies for people is actually lesser. Companies in pharma, companies in FMCG actually invest more in people development than in technology space. Thinking actually it should be the other way around. This is a people-centric business, but actually in India we are getting more returns in different sectors than what our logic tells us. So you have to see that you stack up. If you want to invest in people, is it really material for me to invest in people? And what areas should they invest in? Not reactive analytics, but still a good starting point for those who haven't started is actually getting a fundamental right. Doing your master health checkup. Just get it done, go through all the 200, 300 metrics, start finding insights. There's one company I worked with, it was in Delhi, Gurgaon, fairly large organization, employ about 14,000 to 15,000 people. The recruitment team was entirely focused on reducing the cost per hire of the employee. It was a KPI of the recruitment head. I need to keep reducing cost per employee. It was 6,500 rupees, if the target was to reduce to 6,000 rupees. Then look at all the other data, just by looking at the diagnostics. And we actually found that was the biggest mistake the company was doing. The convoluted logic was actually for the earlier attrition, the baby attrition that we talked about was actually quite high. That's also because you are not investing adequately in recruitment. So the eventual solution, because of looking at all the other metrics, not just one metric, actually told us that for that particular company, you actually need to double or triple your investment in recruitment. So the corrective action ended up not reducing cost per hire, but actually making it at 23,000 rupees per employee. That means I actually have spending more to hire. That means I'm spending, instead of one round of interview, I created 3 rounds of interview. And there was a lot of social marketing that company was doing. So we created something called social interviewing. So people meeting in the dinner table, and there was one interview round for them. So people had to come up with creative ways to raise the expenses so that they're actually hiring the right people. So your data may actually tell you something which you didn't think of. But to do that, you need to do your master check. Right? So the various instances like this where your reactive data can actually serve. So those few for the early stages of analytic thinking, get your assets done. Right? And then you can look at where you want to be and where you can go. Over-investment in technology, over-investment in predictive analytics without getting your base covered may actually be very misleading for you. You will not know where your money is going. Yeah. Couple of things. Though there was a Saratoga, I work with Hay Group now. Now it's Conquering Hay Group since December 1. In Hay Group, we have been working with companies and a variety of clients, both in India and rest of the world, on working towards both proactive and predictive aspects of it. I'll give you a couple of examples, maybe you can pick a few from that. So one of the areas that we are doing in proactive analysis is around just basically creating a job description. This is a nightmare for HR folks. Right? Every job keeps changing in less than 6 months, and if you are in emerging markets, fast-growing company, it's even worse. By the time you wrote a job description, the job has changed already, structure has changed. Right? So one thing that we have done is we have created an app. It's called Activate. It's available on both iOS and Android platform. The Activate app for job description creator is actually a 6-minute process to create a job description. Anybody can create a job description, but the power of it is leverages all the 20 million job descriptions created by Hay Group in the past. And all the 7.5 million leadership assessments Hay Group has done in the past. To tell you, if you are choosing a certain accountability area, what are the technical competencies at what level? What are the behavioral competencies at what level? And when you look at choice of 5 or 6 key accountabilities, even in distinct areas, it will pick up and tell you what kind of experience you minimally need to be successful in that job. So it is using predictive, not proactive analytics. It's not predicting, but it is saying, given all the research, given the choices that you are making, be proactive on what kind of decisions you are taking. Similarly, we have also created an app for dealing with emotional intelligence learning journeys. This is first-time managers. We are finding big attraction in China. We are launching early stages in India. We are trying out Nhrd, whether it's relevance for India, but China is a big success for us. Which is early managers, less than 3 years of experience. Many of them struggle dealing with team management. So the question is, how can I build emotional intelligence for them? And it's done through an app process. So what we are doing is every employee that participates in the company, the HR team in the back end actually has the master data in the gamified version. So you keep getting master data of who is doing what kind of initiatives are there in the app. And it starts feeding you so that you can see systemically what are we missing, what kind of areas are my younger generation keen on to learn and to work with. Say for example, if people are very keen on and learn to work with having one-to-one conversations, more than one-to-team conversations. If that is a trend that is happening in certain demographics, you actually have to say, why is that happening? Why are people not wanting to be in teams to do their work? And you reflect on it. So HR can look at data flowing in from various perspectives and start thinking through why. I like the question of now what and so what, but it's the same thing. The question is, you look at data, how it's flowing into you, and spin it back to say why is it happening, and drill it deeper. You conduct your focus groups, you conduct your employee surveys, you look at other data flowing in and see what patterns are emerging. When it comes to predictive analytics, some of the interesting work that we have started is we have a joint venture partnership with a company called Dynaplan. Nhrd is one of the very few companies in the world who is doing strategic workforce planning modeling. So we at Hay Group last year we started a partnership and we have created a tool called Lava. It's available on, you can check it out later on. Lava is a tool that is used to predict what your workforce requirements are for you. It is a pseudo-scientific process. The engine is science. But the consultants who are going to do will have to make some judgment. They will come and spend some 2-3 weeks at your company studying what your business model is, what are your aspirations, what are your current state of affairs. And there's a lot of data that goes in there. Data, or if it's garbage then it's not good enough. Right? But we ensure that the data that goes in is actually sharp enough to give you a point of view that if you have an aspiration to grow like this or any other angle, the question is, what are those skills that you're going to run short of? What are those years of experience that you're going to run short of where you may have to go to the market for hiring, and that means you're going to increase your recruitment costs. So your make versus buy decisions for HR can change very significantly. So this is a tool that is to use data of your own company and build a certain logic on top of it and come to you with a certain point of view to say this is how your workforce is going to take shape. Now, are you prepared for these things? What are your current blind spots? And we are heading in the direction. More and more applications in conversations going to be conglomerates who are very keen to see what sectors of their businesses are going to have workforce shortages, given their aspirations. And these are areas that are heading into productivity. It's happening in India. We already people are doing it. I'm sure some of you are already doing something like that. With various applications, just keep watch out for where you are in your business life cycle and your own internal maturity, and correspondingly see what kind of intervention investment do you really need to make. I also would like to bring your attention to a few characteristics that you need to look out for, and what kind of people and skills you need to have for doing this. There is a specific trait called analytical thinking. Please look out for it. This is a trait that you will need very high levels of for those who are going to be involved in this thinking process. There's also a trait called conceptual. Those who can look at patterns and look at big pictures and see what do we really need. So these two traits we have seen as maximum correlation for people who want to do this kind of thing. From a skill perspective, you may need a lot of data physicists, data scientists, so at least one person in your team who has that level of capability and maturity. So if your ability to invest, if you are a very large organization, you can possibly look at investing in those skills. If not, you have to start grooming those skills in one or two people at least, who will provide the direction for what data is valid data and what is not valid. How do you look at patterns? What kind of programming do you really need to write to get to draw some interpretations? So there are going to be some skill issues that you need to resolve. There are going to be some fundamental traits and characteristics you need to bring to the table, if it is there or not there. And you also need to put in place certain technology systems and investments. And depending on your maturity, you will take a call. Is it where do I start? And those are something that you may have to look out for. There is no one right answer. As a typical consultant, I have to say that. But there are a lot of learning from right answers. And you don't need to make the same mistake that everybody else has done. And some can fast track your own learning. That's what I would like to say. And we can open for questions.
Don't forget to engage a consultant, okay? Yeah. So, Deepak, it's very insightful. One thing I learned, so Shiva, I keep on saying, sorry. Shiva, one thing I definitely agree with you. One thing I have learned throughout my career is you need to teach your leaders to ask questions back to you. And you need to give the right questions to them. Otherwise, they will ask the wrong question and make you work 18 or 20 hours. And you produce wrong data and teach them. So one of the things I learned is keep on teaching them what kind of questions they will ask you so that you can produce right answers to them. So your 6 questions I really like, and you should tell them to ask you and you should provide the data. And I'll also add 2 questions to that, which is a very good starting point. One question is, one thing I have learned, especially working for US multinational company, they are really worried about attrition in India is very high. And one of the reasons they don't give jobs to India saying that India attrition is very high. So I always tell them, look, working in India attrition is inevitable. That is part of our cost model or labor arbitrage model. So I taught them asking one question, that ask the question, what kind of people we are losing? Are we losing good attrition or we are having bad attrition? So I developed an operational definition of what is good attrition and what is bad attrition. So that is one thing. So good attrition means people who are rated below rating like 3 and 4 and who are cost is very high, more than comp ratio of 1, who are vanilla skill set and who is doing lower end of the job. If they are leaving, they are called good attrition. Thank you very much. I replace them with the bottom of the pyramid college graduates. I control my cost structure. So that is called good attrition. Bad attrition means people whose comp ratio is less than 1, very good skill set, who are rated as 1 and 2. If they do leaving, they are called a bad attrition. So always I show India good attrition is more than the bad attrition, and that is checking it. Second question always they ask, recently I was conducting a board presentation, they ask, oh, India price is very high, you are escalating at 8 to 9% every year. So I tell them, don't ask that question. Ask me a question, what is your fully loaded cost year after year? My fully loaded cost 3 years back it was $24K US dollars, today it is $18K US dollars. So my fully loaded cost every year reducing by 1K or 2K. And I told them how I do it with pyramid correction and improvement of utilization and reliability year after year. So that's what you need to manage. So we need to tell our leaders, board and our stakeholders what kind of questions you should ask us. Otherwise they will ask wrong question and we produce tons of data and they get frustrated at the end of the day. So HR analytics is all about teaching our stakeholders what kind of smart questions they should ask and we provide smart answers. That's all we do. So okay, now in the of time, before we open up for questions, I will request Nhrd who is going to play. I think they have a small session. That's what I got instruction. Madam, Vikram will be sharing a small presentation, then we'll open up for Q&A.
Thank you everyone. This is once again. I'm Saul, I'm CEO of a company called Savimo. Thank you for Nhrd to give us a few minutes to talk about what we're doing and how we can help companies like you. Some maybe not the big ones, but the small ones. To make it short, so we are a startup company. The whole was in India and Bangalore startup, so we're one of them. We are building a what I call an on-demand mobile solution of unsold hotel inventory to corporate travelers and last-minute travelers. So what we're trying to do is we go to hotels and get the hotel inventory that's unsold. Then we go to corporate travelers like big ones, small ones, medium ones, and say let us manage your corporate travel, especially the hotel side of it. We build solutions for you and your employees. And then we also work with the consumers directly because we've seen our corporate travelers also becoming here. We can holiday travelers. So we're building these products and speak more about them. Just about us, it's with two founders here. I have a lot of background in analytics. I set up Nhrd analytics office in Bangalore, but got tired of the analytics part, moved into business. So I've been in digital media most of my life. And partner here at the back, he joined his career in GE Capital. So we understand where data is very important. And we started our company in the travel space 2 years back, based in Bangalore. Small company, 10 people, trying to do a lot of big things. We just got funded with Nhrd being a lead investor. And that's just a big small plug on us. What we are trying to do is, try to understand the problems faced by business travelers, and especially in the small to medium sized companies. Your employees have last minute meetings, they don't know where to stay, they don't know if the hotel is approved by the company or not, and then in the end can consolidate all my bookings and expenses into one simple system. For the management, for the HR, for the travel, for finance, how do I decrease my travel costs? You guys are talking about how to decrease the HR costs. Here we say how do you decrease your travel costs? How do I streamline my whole employee travel plan? What's the process around it? What's the technology around it? So that's what we are trying to build. We are building what we call Savimo for business. It is a product on the phone or the mobile. Nowadays everything is mobile, is the sexiest thing to do. So we are doing it. We have apps built out both on iOS and Android, where our employees can book hotels on the go. We want you to empower your employees to do your hotel bookings themselves. And they can do it on the go. And what we do for the company in the meantime is we are building a whole online system which is integrated down the road with MIS. But you can manage your employee travels. You can manage see who's traveling where, how much they're spending. Is this within budget? Are they approved to stay at that hotel? You can manage the payments. And we're also trying to build a model where we can work with you to forecast your travel. So that down the road we can then aggregate the margin of different corporates and source corporate rates at much better rates. Helps you and helps company, and also big part is get your employee empowered to manage these travel requirements. So it's again, like I said, it's early days for us. We are out here to showcase our product, talk to companies, get them signed on. But please help us out. We're a Bangalore-based startup. These are benefits for the companies. We have great properties for them signed up across India, going international. You get to corporate rates with your loyalty program. You can talk to us. We've been walking around here, send us emails, and we'll help you with our product. And finally, since it's a startup, we want to incentivize people to use the product. We have a code. We would encourage people to download our app. sign in, and right now sign in with the code SMHRD. You will be eligible to win a dinner for two or lunch for two at Ritz-Carlton or 2 nights stay at Taj Gateway for a couple. We will announce the winner at the end of the event, so please download the app. If you can't, we are mobile, but we all don't have connections. Give us your business card, we'll go down the aisle and then we'll pick up 2 winners from there. Thank you everyone.
So back to HR analytics. So Shiva need to travel back and need to catch a flight. So we may ask the question to Shiva. He need to leave another 10 minutes. So you'll open up for questions. I also have the questions. You'll shift between. Yeah, you also have. You also need to leave. So we'll point questions to them. And Deepak, sorry, I can't read her name. Very bad names. Okay, numbers. Very good. He said very good numbers. But bad names. Yeah. Okay, last row. Yeah. You have the mic at the last.
Qualify now.
Alright.
Question for Rajiv.
Question for Rajiv. Yeah, go ahead. No issue. We have 10-15 minutes. So, yeah.
So, my name is Captain Shantanu. I am found officer. I lead globally wearable computing and behavioral economics, Bangalore. My question, Rajiv, to you is that we've been running some projects on using wearable computing, wearable devices and performance management systems in a pilot group for some time now. We have a team of psychologists, video analytics, engineers who work along with us in this behavioral labs. My question is more from the data source. The data sources that we receive from various of these devices, whether it's biometrics, wearables, emotional engines, social data, though they kind of predict a particular value, they may not be syncing with each other on the terms of correlation. Let me give an example. If I'm talking about the temperature in this room today, I can talk to centigrade, Fahrenheit, 2 different levers of range, which I have a conversion ratio. Now if I look at anxiety levels or stress levels in a particular workforce, on performance management data using wearable haptics, the way we are using, the data stream can come from biometrics, the data stream can come from video analytics, the data stream can come from wearables. Now though they speak about anxiety levels, but I do not have a way, or if you could sort of like, how do you correlate those 2 or 3 different data sources into something which is fungible? Because the data sources, I don't think we have reached that level of finding a correlation of kind of grading to come to that. So I have this specific question, if you could throw some light on that.
Right. So I think this is a problem of it's almost data cleaning, it seems like, because what you're saying is you are measuring some quantity, but the measurements may be in different scales. So here you mentioned based on different devices, the measurements may be different. But if you're using this data in predictive analytics, you don't even need to correlate. I mean, you just take all those measurements and you have a column for, did this measurement come from a fit, this device or some other device and so on, and you take the raw measurements and whatever is correlated will typically be useful. But of course, I think if you want to normalize all of these different measurements to one particular scale that you've defined, then you can even train models for that. So you could potentially have some human, label that actually this corresponds to this anxiety level for different data sources, and then a model can actually map all your different measurements to that scale. So you could easily do that.
Thanks, Rajiv. Any other question? Yeah.
To you and to Shiva. You said when you started with HR, did not have metric system, very defined metric system. I want to be corrected or improve upon it. Yes, we did have one particular system where it had more than 11 and it had 676 metric system, it's DCML. It's unfortunate that it got killed. It got killed because of personal interest of Bill Curtis, he sold it and therefore it got totally buried. So even today, even if people read and learn from that. And most of the analytics is PCM is basically for predictiveness and to analyze and then predict. And if you look at the metrics, it's more than about 676, starting from recruitment, and it goes up to the corporate excellence, how to create corporate excellence and how it can be done. It also talks about absolute data and relative data. For example, engagement is a relative data, whereas return on investment on training and on recruitment is an absolute data. So I just want both of you to add how that has helped or the concept of PCMM has added value to all these prediction and data analytics.
Yeah, maybe I'll start, then I can get Shiva. You are absolutely right. I'm one of the person who early got in PCM certified when I was working in Philips with Mali, and we implemented level 3 in one of the business unit. You are absolutely right. PCM have methodology where each business process within HR, whether recruitment, training and development, have a metric defined. So one of the disconnect in PCM had, that's what I was pointing out, is the operational definition. It calls for a metric. It tells that every HR processes should have a measurement. That's what it tells about. And it also gives some illustration of measurements like cycle time in hiring, such, and for learning some measurement, it gives an illustration. The problem with the PCMM is it does not have an operational definition of these measurements. As a result, each company or this same company, different departments have their own operational definition of this metric. Like accounting system, we don't have a common definition, operational definition of measurement system. So my early days, I was looking for what is the common operational definition of these measurements. Do we have a benchmarking number? For example, if I say my cycle time of recruitment, it can start from starting and giving a requisition to onboarding, or it can be a requisition to making an offer, or it can be a requisition to candidate accepting the offer. So different company define cycle time differently. So if I say my cycle time of hiring is 90 days and you say your cycle time of hiring is 60 days, we are talking on two different matrices because the different start point and end points are different. So that was the problem. Today also that's a problem in industry. We are not talking about common definition, hence I cannot benchmark. So Saratoga, what they came up with is defining this common operational definition early days, and they started month by month publishing this definition by domain, like IT services, manufacturing and country by country. What is cycle time in India is different from what is cycle time in the US, because India notice period is 60 days or 30 days, in America's notice period is 2 weeks. So the context is different. That is the reason data without context is useless. 90 days in India have a context of notice period. 90 days in US have a context of 15 days notice. These are two different animals we are talking. That's what I was saying.
Completely endorse what you just said. The biggest challenge for this entire problem of it's not number of metrics. You can have 50, 100, 200, 600. It really doesn't matter. But what matters is that are we using the right definition, and are we covering the life cycle and all the hypotheses that can be coming in that thing. Say for example, let's look at simply learning. You can have 50, 60 metrics for different types of learning programs. But there are some 3 or 4 key metrics that you should look at. The basic thing is L&D investment per employee. How much money per employee are we investing? Is it adequate or not? Second thing is every employee covered? L&D coverage. You look at how many different people are there, which you split L&D coverage by different levels, and then you see different geographies, and then you start seeing patterns. Okay, people at the top, we haven't really invested in their learning because they're already been there and done that. And suddenly you see there's a vacuum there, and everybody else is going through a learning program. And then you also see L&D investment per FTE, L&D coverage, and then you also look at L&D. Certainly look at whether L&D hours per employee. How many hours are people actually clocked that year? Be it online, offline, classroom, on-the-job learning, which is classified as learning. How much L&D hours are employee clocking? These 3 metrics actually tell you the maximum story of the impact of L&D programs. And you can just break it down by various demographic patterns in your company. And these three will just tell you enough story for you to really decide which aspect of L&D you really need to invest. And similarly, each of the processes of recruitment, engagement, attrition management, attendance management, compensation, all of these have 4 or 5 key metrics that you should look at. You should fulfill. The biggest challenge is what's the numerator, what's the denominator. Are we within our own company having a common understanding of who constitutes an employee, what constitutes cost, what constitutes time? This agreement is more important. I'll give an example. A simple thing like cost per hire. Everybody understands cost per hire. But what goes into cost? Now that becomes a weak point. Okay, cost is the actual money that is spent by us in that process, which include expenses, travel, life, so on and so forth, and a consultant fee that goes into that. All this is cost, which is visible cost. But there's a whole lot of invisible cost. How many interviews did I conduct? There's time of the people spent during the interview. The 1 hour I'm spending, you calculate back with the salary of these people who are coming in. That's investment cost that goes into cost per hire. And actually, you start going into detail. The limit is just unlimited. There are various definitions of what cost is. So what's really important is whenever you're doing a metric, whenever you're doing analytics, you need to be clear what is the definition for it, and you agree of the definition at least within your company if you are not doing much of it.
I think what Shiva mentioned, the last point is the challenges when we train HR analytics for our own people, we use a couple of hierarchy. The first level of hierarchy is called data. How will you understand data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative? Second hierarchy is reports, where the data come from. The third hierarchy is analytics, that is metric. Metric is the operational definition. What is the denominator, what is the numerator? The fourth one is what he calls business intelligence. That means the analytics need to have a context. Without context, it is useless. Within the same organization, the cycle time of hiring for sales people have a different context to cycle time of hiring for college graduates. So without data, without context is meaningless. So always when a data comes, first question we ask is the context. Context is the business intelligence part of it. So data to business intelligence is very important for HR analytics. Otherwise, you are making a wrong choice or wrong decision. A good point. Thanks for raising that.
I think it has been a wonderful evening in terms of trying to understand how we can measure HR, how we can try to articulate the importance of HR and its impact on the business. Thank you to all the panelists. I should first start with thanking Srikanth for having taken time off and explaining his discussions and a small presentation from my side. Of course, we are missing our friends from GE and from Nhrd, but we have a friend here from Amazon and Rajiv from Amazon with us for his presentation. Thanks to our sponsor, Randstad, and then to our sponsors for the day here today, from Savvy Mob and also from Micro for having put up their stalls here and offering some goodies for us.